Committee meeting to order. Just to introduce the members who are present here today, we have joining us online is Senator Carl King Neighbors. To my far right is Senator Selena Babalta, and then the Vice Chair, Senator Karina Magofnia, and I'm the Chair for Fiscal Affairs, Donna Manglonia. And with 4 members present, we have the quorum to proceed with today's agenda. And so with that, members, can I get a motion for the adoption of today's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We now move down to the next item on the agenda, public comments. Floor is now open.
Good afternoon, Chairman Minglonia, Senator Karina, Senator Babalta, and staff. Guahu Siliana Minglonia Swan Hofschneider, Gagizu Tatlugini para Imatua Council for Native Chamar Advancement. Irason na Gagizu Gini Paguna Ogan, no Amina Talawani. Magazza na gagsigakan. Yung talawani no na para bi testigudzi isti I proposito gi House Bill 2391 ma offers ti gi lower house gagi pago gi sa hamzu penatan isti na ginago no agogogo unmizon pro ma nadanya talo guato gi ginago i Department of Public Lands ni esta no ma-apreba gi fiscal year 2024 aginia gi mapus gi September ma-apreba beginning October 1, 2024, 4,960,881,000 para izon niya no budget no submit gato as a courtesy para legislatura under section budget act no section 7. Pusistin na bill agogogo i senador ami kongreso zan guahaloki supporting letter gini ni Secretary Santos na agogogo additional no $1 million ni po nadanyai puspago sampi ginagaw niya po gasta gi fiscal year 2024 5,960,881 if na galum esti para ofan higher toto talo no toto para DPL no parewa para saipan tinensan luta no para guasya programa no estilo galom enno ni i public law ni esta mapasa para i-budget no to comprende often na esti na ginago na pomanadanya talo sa pomanadanya esti $1 million para operational cost anwa atan esti lelenya pa operational cost ginagaw niya so fafay sinamzo ni senador no kosinya in biras ti totis and atan kumagahit na necessaryo na pumagasta 5,960,881 gi alum 12 meses dyan para hofa sa currently no over 2,000 homestead applicants pending gi gato gi Department of Public Lands no parewa loki no guasya land leases no gigato no man nebo naman ma-execute in fact no guasya no public land violations za no instead of Pumatogi Violation Act man ma-provide no public comment para no tompi edzu na violation instead of pero manapara za a lot of the guaizi uno na list giza susupi no anon atan edzi ialigan telefon papa esta infrastructure no giza siya kalantagi so-called public access para public service facilities like telephone underground so kumu para mo na an poron no patsa edzu ni para public utilities or services para offer problema kung nisita pa ako tafaisin edzi makila gi umbandansalan ni pero at is on your parking structure so istigi no bula problema niya i DPO at this point so fafaisin anzu actually na na no ekungo kizifina sesenya si Senator Po gini galatsa na kusinya maagan alam mi sekretary zo managwa oversight hearings agwa mas no quinentus prestisa manggogo talo un mizon zab ginya galatsa few months ago ni papas 5 million budget so in add another 1 million para zonya operation to comprende no dangkulisti na iso ni para no tasotaha i DPO para kalanizi run amok so no utungan na no tizao kumentus tagini lo esta lo kinosikan tidai finatinas no sizus masis of gogokwanzu na pendi first pa committee zo managwa public hearing za mas inatan offer para hofa magoidistis and hofa if 4 kana 5 milyon ni para magasta gini 2024 para offer ni salapi za taatnan of the man po madres magahit i homestead sa over 2,000 pag na pending homestead for many years maski 20 años ka man matesta sizus masi.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. Floor is still open. All right, if there's none, we now close the public comments portion of the agenda and we move on to new business. Under new business, we have House Bill 2389, which is to appropriate $380,529.33 generated under 4 CMC Section 53036 and for other purposes. Members, discussion on the bill? I recognize the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have some clarifying questions on the bill. So I understand that there's 380,000 to appropriate, and I just wanted to clarify on Section 2. It states line 7 says this. The 380,000 is generated under 4 CMC subsection 53036, specifically under Business Unit Department Code 1501B and Business Unit Department Code 1501S. Do you know if the 380,000 are the comes from both accounts combined, or is it where's the 380,000? Do we have a breakdown of where the 380,000 comes from?
I believe it's both, but if I've invited the executive director to address some of the concerns that members may have and to answer any questions. You can join us, Mr. Evangelista.
Thank you, Senate Vice President Manglonia, Vice Chair, honorable members of this august body. Thank you for having me today. So in regards to your question, Vice Chair, the 380 initially would have been coming out of both the accounts. When I had started working with the House and with this bill, the appropriation bill, 380,000 was about the total that was in 1501B and 1501S. As it was going through the House, I had a fund certification done with finance, and that bumped up 1501S to about 517,000.
Thank you for that clarification. So the 380,000 is a combination of funds from the two different accounts, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
From the original House bill, yes.
From the original. Okay, but right now you had a fund certification done, and as of today, there's more than.
In 1501S, yes, ma'am. There's more funds today.
So how much is in 1501 right now?
1501S, there's about 517,000 after the excuse me, after the fund certification, and 1501B, I believe there's about 170,000.
But out of these two business units, you're only going to take total funds of 380,000 to appropriate.
That was the initial ask. Yes.
So are we staying at the 380,000, or are we asking to take to appropriate the whole amount, the total amount?
If we could get the total amount, that would help significantly with our operations. Currently, the CNMI Cannabis Commission has access to a little under $3,000. So
S- So have you, I guess, discussed it with the chairman to see? I mean, if you guys are only asking for 380,000, that's fine. That's what's on the appropriation bill. But knowing that you have more than a little bit over $600,000, right? I mean, I guess I'm inquiring whether you guys would need more.
yes, I did have a discussion with the chairman regarding the bill. And I believe that because 1501B hadn't gone through fund certification yet, we were going to do 380 from 1501S. And then the leftover 137
Uh-huh.
would be, I guess, available fiscal year 2025, October 1st of 2024.
From the 1501.
S.
Yes. So 380K from 1501S, and then the remaining $529 will come from 1501B.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. No, so of the 517,000,
Uh-huh.
380 would be appropriated.
So the entire amount,
Yes,
entire
yes.
amount of $380,529.33 would be actually coming out from the 1501S.
Yes, ma'am.
So it would be we would no longer need the 1501B in this bill.
I guess maybe after I get the fund certification for 1501B, we can work on that.
Okay, so the way it is written right now, if we are only going to take the 380,000, we actually don't need to mention the 1501B, right? Because the entire amount is going to come out of the 1501S.
Correct.
Okay, but you're going to check and see if you guys want to try and appropriate the entire amount from both 1501S and 1501B.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then we would need to make an amendment to the bill.
Right.
Got
Correct.
it. Okay, and then you said you already have the fund certification for 1501S,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're gonna get one for 1501B.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, that's all I have, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Recognize Senator Babauta.
I think there would be no need to eliminate the language regarding 1501B, even though you don't have a fund certification from Finance. I think it allows your agency to be flexible. Just a word of advice, but if we do need to take all the 380,000 from 1501S, then we will take out the 1501B language. So that's just for your thoughts. Also, how many FTEs does the Cannabis Commission have at this time?
Currently, Senator, there are 3,
3, including yourself.
including myself. Yes, ma'am.
And what positions are they?
So as of right now, that's myself as managing director. Then we have the inspector 1 position and an executive secretary as well.
Reason why I ask is because we just adopted in an earlier Senate session a joint resolution to provide for 3 additional FTEs. And what are these funds proposed for?
Well, so a few of the bigger challenges that we're facing right now is one would be the lack of manpower. On top of that, since I've started, we've ran about 6 or 7 on-site inspections, which we had to carry out using our personal vehicles. The commission has not had a government vehicle since its inception. So those are just one of the bigger things. Well, one of the other things that we're looking to implement is a central tracking system, which would allow us to keep track of basically from the germination of a seed up until it's sold to the counter, which would help tremendously in enforcement and compliance.
Okay. How often do you meet with the commissioners?
The board meets about once a month, sometimes more if needed.
Have they been consistent with the once a month meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this part of their recommendation as well?
The budget?
This appropriation,
Oh, no, this was my work with the
Okay.
House. Yeah.
but are they aware?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, they are.
Okay. If we appropriate only 380,000 of the 517 from 1501S and then pending a certification of funds for the 1501B, the remainder will be appropriated by the legislature, just so you know.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And it's not necessarily back to the cannabis. Do you understand that?
Not really.
Well, there's a special accounts created, but so what it is in the budget, it will be an earmark, but depending on the priorities, we can suspend the earmark. Just so you know. So it's not necessarily going to go to you. Are you aware of that? No, right? For earmarks, we can suspend it. So, would you like a few minutes to think of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Certainly, you justified the need for additional personnel. I think you do need, additional manpower and at least one vehicle for your field work because you guys do a lot of field work.
Yes, ma'am.
So I will yield to the recommendation of the committee of the whole with regard to the remainder of the funds that are currently available for the Cannabis Commission. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Balta. I recognize Senator King Neighbors. If you still had something you want to add.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask and inquire briefly regarding the systems that you had mentioned regarding tracking from germination to the final product on the floor and how that system was integral in the accountability, field and how that would contribute to the commission and its efforts. Could you expound on what that system entails and why it would be beneficial and what purpose it serves for the Cannabis Commission to track from germination to the final product on the shelf?
Thank you for that question, Senator King Neighbors. Yes, so the central tracking system basically allows us to, as I mentioned earlier, keep track. It's called a seed to sale system. And one of the things that's included in a central tracking system would be an analytics, which would show based on how many plants they have, there's a certain number of product that would come out from that number of plants. If that is whatever the number is, whether it's the end product or the amount of plants that they have, does not match. For example, they have 100 plants, but somehow only manage to produce 1 pound of product. That would be a cause for concern, and it would be in the commission's interest to find out why the numbers aren't matching up. But that's just one of them. The others is it's a it happens in real time. So if sales are made at the dispensaries, it's automatically reported over to the commission so that we'd be able to keep track of all sales being made at dispensaries and between producers and retailers or processors and retailers.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so if I can just kind of maybe allow my understanding of what your analysis is on that component. It would allow for data to be tracked in real time for the vendors to understand what products are moving in what quantity and in what rate. So in the event one product is moving less, maybe the actual market in and of itself will dictate that we'll remove this product and we'll manufacture more of this to compensate for whatever supply and demand is being produced from the data generated from the system, correct?
Yes, sir. So the vendors tend to have their own tracking system that keeps track of their own sales and what products they provide.
Sure.
A central tracking system for the commission would be mainly for compliance and ensuring that everybody is playing by the rules of the commission.
Okay, and then just lastly, to understand how much product is being moved at any given time, so that so that data can be corroborated by what is being submitted by the individual vendors as a accountability mechanism.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I yield my time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator King Neighbors. We'll just take a 2-minute recess. We now rise back from recess. My apologies to the viewing public for the delay in getting back to you. We were just looking at the statute, trying to address some of the concerns in the bill in regards to the statute, because one statute was incomplete or did not have the same information as a different statute. And so we've got that clarified. So at this time, we just like to recognize any members for further discussion on House Bill 2389. Recognize Senator Babauta.
Thank you, Chairman. I offer a motion for the legal counsel and the LA to work on an amendment to House Bill 2389 to include language to the effect that notwithstanding 4 CMC 1512 and 4 CMC 53036G, that the entire amount available under Business Unit Department Code 1501S of 517,868 and 14 cents shall be appropriated to the Cannabis Commission, and the managing director shall be the expenditure authority for such funds for the use of their personnel and operations for fiscal
Without
without fiscal year limitation. So move.
Second.
All right, motion was made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion? If none, Devin, can you take roll, please?
Senator Selena R. Babauta.
Yes.
Senator Karina L. Magovny.
Yes.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors. Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Devin. With 3 members voting yes, the amendment hereby is adopted, and we're now back to the main motion. Discussion on the main motion. So again, just to clarify, sorry, the main motion is with the amendment. So now it's with 517. Just to clarify, the 517,000 is cumulative of the fees and the revenue from the cannabis sales, and that by appropriating this 517, this would give the authority for the managing director to plan for and expend for the operations of the Cannabis Commission beyond just the current fiscal year. Earlier in this morning's Senate session, we adopted a joint resolution that would provide for the 3 FTEs, additional FTEs that the Commission is requesting, and that will make its way to the House. And so by appropriating these monies, the 517, this would address those 3 positions that's in the joint resolution, as well for to address some of the operational needs of the commission, which is inclusive of roughly 150,000 that is for a tracking system. And then any remaining funds will be used to address next fiscal year's personnel and possibly operational needs. And so I just wanted to clarify for the viewing public and anyone who may have questions in regards to those monies. Any further discussion on the main motion? So this would be House Bill 2389, S1. SD1? Yeah, we're not substituting. SD1. At this time, I recognize our LA to take roll.
Senator Selena R. Babauta.
Yes.
Senator Karina L. Magovny.
Yes.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors. Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Devin. With 3 members voting yes, House Bill 2389 SD1 is hereby adopted, and our LA will prepare the committee report for members to sign. At this time, Executive Director Mickey, we appreciate your presence here today and answering questions that the members have.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chair, Senator Salina. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we now move down to the next item on the agenda, which is old business. Up next is House Bill 2391. I extended the invitation to DPL. Unfortunately, several members of the team were not able to make it this afternoon, and so we will table this until such time DPL is available to come before the committee. If we can just move down to Part D, so we can address the IDC and allow the administrator for the state clearinghouse to answer questions from the members, so that we can excuse him while we discuss the remaining bills. And so at this time, we now address House Bill 2356 to utilize the remaining 60% of the total indirect cost, revenue, or reimbursement by fiscal year collected for each grant to address the CNMI government's financial deficit and for other purposes. Discussion, members? Before I recognize any members, can I invite you up to the chamber, Mr. Cabrera? And while you get situated, we'll take a short recess. We now rise back from recess, and the members are still reviewing the proposal by Grant's office on the allocation of the IDC. IDC total IDC collected is roughly anywhere between 2.1 to 2.3 each year. In 2023, according to the data from OGM, the CNMI received 2.36 million in IDC. And of that, 35% by statute goes to OGM, and then the remaining 65 goes to general fund. The proposal for the IDC moving forward is to divvy it up by the different agencies that support grant, the management of these grants, to include Department of Finance, which encompasses the divisions of finance and accounting, treasury, procurement, and IT. And then we have proposals to OMB and OPM, as well as civil service, to address the personnel documents like NOPAs and the likes. The 1% to OPA, 1% to administrative services, and I'm assuming this is a SAA's office. And then the remaining 25% shall be used towards a deficit reduction. Further discussion by the members? And so, sorry, before I proceed, Mr. Cabrera, with the new rate, is there still a percentage allocated to the subgrant?
Sir, the new rate?
I mean, the new proposed percentage to OGM?
Yes, according to the numbers the table I provided, about 100, if you looked at 2023, 165,000 will go to subgrant.
Is it by statute a percentage for subgrant?
It is in the statute 19-49 allows for 20% to go to subgrant thing.
20% of the 40%?
Yes, sir. Or right now it's 20% of the 35% total
Right.
collected.
In your earlier proposal back in September, there was a recommendation to have a set aside for subgrants for the districts. Is that something that can still be considered, or?
Yes, sir. I highly suggest that we continue that, providing Tinian and Rhoda municipalities with at least 5%, so they have a basis each year to help their respective municipalities.
Because that's no longer in your.
Yes, I apologize, but you can use both. It's just a recommendation from my side. I'm okay to giving Rhoda and Tinian 5%. But it's up to your discretion as well.
5% from where?
5% of the 165. Oh, over here.
And will you still be needing to amend the list of positions?
Yes, please, if possible, could we amend the positions as mentioned?
So if we go back to your September letter, you want us to keep, or you're still okay with proposing D and E,
Yes,
correct?
yes, sir. D, E, F, if possible.
And F. So basically, all right, members, any more questions for recognized vice chair?
Thank you, Chair. Just some clarification. So on your new proposal dated February 26th, I guess finance is agreeing to take 25% versus if the way it was broken down back in September, they would have had 30%. So they're willing to go down 5%, right? Because we have Division of Finance and Accounting at 20, Treasury at 5, Procurement at 5. So that brings them up to 30. But now since we're consolidating them in the new proposal, they're willing to take, oh, sorry, not 10%, 5%. So they're willing to go from 30 to 25.
Yes, Senator. I spoke to Secretary Narita, and she's okay between 25 and 30%.
Okay. And then I do see a significant change on administrative services. Back in September, the allocation was 12.5%, and now we're with the new proposal, it's at 1%. So,
You will like me to explain why?
yes, please.
Okay. In the past, on this long sheet of paper, I provided one of the pages for indirect costs when we submit the rates. This is one page out of 200 pages that get submitted.
Okay.
It's a breakdown of all the indirect cost pool assignments or agencies. And if you look at the green on the far right, the SAA's office makes up 10.57%.
Okay.
Then I recommended 12.5%. So, but now, as of today, I put it down to 1%.
1%.
Why is that? Because in the past, the SAA's office was the one processing all our RFPAs and assisted us with other matters to help our office. And in the past, according to the indirect cost rate proposal that was prepared by Bob Schrack a long time ago, it's included. So I'm only following the same formula. That agency was included. So, I mean, giving them at least 1% now is at least something. It'll help the SAA's office.
So
1%.
let's go back to what you just said earlier. You said before they were helping you guys process some stuff. Are they no longer doing that process?
Our office has now assumed
Okay.
responsibility for doing the
Okay.
RPAs, but the SAA's office still continues to help the general government.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. And then I noticed that the Office of the Public Auditor also went down to 1% versus the 5% that was previously proposed.
Yes. You want me to explain, or?
Yes, please.
Since the auditor's office already receives 1% from the general government, I mean, I felt like 1% was conducive enough. I mean, 1% is about $20,000. That's enough to give training. And if you feel that it should be different, then maybe you can suggest. It's just I was just trying to balance it out so that way 25% can go to the
So if
deficit
you look at
reduction.
number 4, right? It's now at 1%, and if you look at the September, it was at 5%. So, I mean, I don't have any information or data to provide any recommendation as to what the percent allocation should be. So, I mean, I'm trusting that with your proposals that you work with these guys more directly than I do. So I'm not in the.
Is that the statutory requirement of 1%?
No. In general, you're talking about in general for the. I just copied that, ma'am. Yes.
Why are we doing public auditing?
Because they're part of the cost pool. I feel that every agency in the cost pool should get 1% at least. Get something instead of nothing.
And what do you mean by cost pool?
The cost pool is
To help.
no. When you formulate the indirect cost agreement, the cost pool is the numerator over the denominator. It is the total workforce of the government that is pushing out the indirect costs over the general cost of government. Therefore, the bigger the denominator, the less indirect cost the CNMI will get. So when you provide more money to DPS, fire, and corrections, we see less of the rate, and that's what's been going on for the last how many years?
In the past, has the public auditor gotten anything?
For indirect, no, they only apply for regular grants from OIA.
So this is the first time you're proposing,
Yes,
and have you always included OP as a cost pool?
yes. Since I started working on indirect cost rate on 2017,
Hmm.
but
Well,
I
but it's
believe
already factored in because the money, if it goes into the general fund, it's already
this is additional.
calculated at
But this is
1%. Right.
additional funding because indirect cost is should be considered a special account. So that money wasn't part of the general fund in the
Yeah.
past. It wasn't.
That's my understanding.
It's not. So we're just trying to quantify or to track this money properly, and I think that's what we really need to do. That's why we propose every account here to be tracked in Munis with a project code for transparency purposes.
Is civil service a part of the cost pool as well?
Yes, it is. We're asking 1% to go to civil service.
Okay.
The top.
Yeah. And can you just explain what their role is in the cost pool? Like, how are they associated?
Civil service.
Yeah,
They're the board that reviews the contracts.
the contracts.
So
Okay.
for OPM.
So that's why they're
Yeah. Keep in mind, like I said, I'm just following the guidelines from the former person that prepared it. In my honest opinion, I think the Attorney General's office should be included in the future, which would drive the rate up a little bit because they do review contracts too.
So is there a reason why you didn't include them in this proposal?
I still have to talk to the Interior Business Center about it
Okay.
for the future.
And it sounds like your office is taking on additional responsibilities, but yet you remain at 40% from what you proposed. I mean, if you're taking on additional responsibilities, shouldn't the cost be also proportionate to the additional responsibilities?
Yes, we have been taking on additional roles, but I mean, a lot of the agencies do come to our office as well, but we feel that the other agencies in the cost bill should get a portion of that money, and we're going to try and make do by getting our own grants to try and compensate for the loss. Yes.
Okay. And then it looks like OMB went down from 5 to 3.5. And okay. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Epi.
Dave?
Yes, sir.
So this rate, I mean, across portion proposal, do you expect the body to establish a special fund for construction? Or special revenue fund, which we can track all this?
I think that's one of his recommendations.
Yes, that's my recommendation. It's just to create an account so that way you can track it or anybody can track it for the future, and then every expense will be tracked in Munis. Correct.
You mentioned that the Attorney General should be part of this list or in the future. Do you include the Attorney General as a part of the cost pool?
That's my recommendation.
No, you're sure.
It's not there right now.
But do you
In
obtaining IBC because you're required to?
I will speak to the Interior Business Center and ask them about that guidance, whether we can include them. That's my opinion because a lot of the contracts go through the Attorney General's office.
Currently you're not.
Currently not. They're not included in the current and in the past cost pool, in the past formulas. No.
And this is all that is in the formula right now.
Yes, this is the exact item that was submitted, except for the green, pink, and the far right. I just added that this morning to show you.
These are actual.
Yes, these are actual documents. This is all submitted. as one page out of 200. But the data somewhat is, just remember that they do get a local budget. Some of these agencies, they do get a local budget. So anything with the indirect cost is a special fund that would add into their current budget. Unlike grants office getting the $2 per year.
Which we plan to increase by $1 more.
Yes, thank you for that. 100% increase.
Do you have the latest update on the single audit? Because that will greatly impact 2024 IDC.
Yes, the single audit is there's a task force working on that with the Secretary of Finance, and I think they're trying their best to take it out by maybe April, or hopefully sooner, but it's still a ways to go. You have to keep in mind that when we do the indirect cost rate, it takes time for the Interior Business Center to review it.
Right.
Sometimes 3 months, 2 months. It depends on the
So
negotiator.
realistically, what time
Realistically,
frame are we looking
I'm
at
hope
as far as
the worst case
actual
scenario, in my
collection?
honest opinion, after doing indirect costs for the last 6, 7, 8 years, we need that thing in by July 20, just to give the CNM a chance to get the rate in, because that would mean finance would have to do all their work late again and draw all the money quickly.
And I mean, can you guys help finance expedite the?
We are part of the audit, a single audit as well. We do a portion of the findings, and we are working on that.
Who's in this task force?
Secretary of Finance, Pam, Ryan, Camacho, Deloitte, Ernst and Young, Darrow from my office, and it's just a small group. But there's contractors out there helping as well.
Is there anything else you want to check that we haven't asked?
Only regarding this. No, I'm okay.
No, I have no further questions.
Members, I think, well, I appreciate Mr. Cabrera coming back with a revised percentage, because now the new proposal allocates funds for deficit reduction, which was the original intent of the bill, albeit not as much as what was proposed, but at least 25% of what is expected could be used to address the deficit. Members, I would like to proceed with the other amendments from the first proposal, D through F.
I have a question on that.
And so, yeah.
Mr. Cabrera, in your September letter, recommendation F,
Yes.
why would you need a loan to be able to get a loan?
In order for our office to have a better financial position, we need more money. There are a lot of grants out there that require having our cost share in order to leverage more. I mean, I give you a good example. Sugar Dock. If we had that 1 million that was given in SNILE, we could have turned it into 3 million or 10 million. But instead, it was use the 1 million as a cost share to get a $9 million grant. So instead, it became localized, and it just stayed here, and you only got 1 million instead of getting 10 million. We need cost sharing money to do our work. We need money to do. We need to pay for A&E. Some grants don't allow for A&E, so we have to use OGM grant money just to do A&E. A&E can cost a lot, so we're losing money aside from the regular administration requests. We are losing money to trying to do a lot of these construction projects, which we have a lot of right now for solar and for park projects. So for loan, go ahead.
The loan would be used as what, in what, a cost share?
Yes, we want the loan to be used as a cost share. Also,
To cover it.
also in the future, we also plan on purchasing buildings if possible by law, to purchase a new building on Guam for the medical referral, or to help out with the MRI. We're trying to do things proactively for the community.
What's stopping you from doing that now?
We don't have enough capital,
And
and we don't have the law behind. And we don't have the law behind us to allow us to own to purchase buildings. Yes.
That's what I was leading to. Why would you need a loan? It's to use capital for
Yes.
other proposed ideas you may have.
Yes.
What about the line of credit?
We just threw that in as a bridge. We need a
Bridge financing?
yes, because I believe, like, for example, the EDA line of credit, we weren't part of it, but OGM is going to try and use its own internal cash or money to bridge our own projects, because some grants require, they're not advance payment, they're reimbursement, right? That's the same idea with the EDA line of credit. Well, how am I going to get my items, my construction paid if the government cannot pay for it up front? So I have to find money on our own to cover those projects. So
Why a line of credit? You're gonna be what, taking out a line of credit on your own agency?
I mean, I just gave it a shot. If it's not possible,
I'm just trying
then
to understand.
I'm just trying to push our projects faster and further along, because we have about like $6-7 million in land and water conservation fund projects for SCORP, statewide comprehensive outdoor recreational projects. So we need that line of credit or that money to come in to pay for our constructions in advance. And I didn't ask, I apologize, I didn't consult with the governor that I needed that money to be included in the line of credit with EDA.
Yeah, I was thinking about
I
that.
should have, but the EDA is a big situation on its own.
And it might cause problems with
And in the future, we have to keep in mind that with all the energy money coming in, we're talking about almost $150-200 million by next year. If they go on a reimbursement basis, I don't know where we're going to find that money to reimburse. We can do the drawdown paperwork, but we cannot pay it out by checks. So that's a big situation that we might face in the near future.
Recognize. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, so the line of credit, you would go to the bank.
Or to USDA. I mean, we've spoken to USDA several times. They're willing to give us a loan. They know we have the capital to pay yearly or every month. They did pre-approve us for like $4 million at one time. But that's just paperwork. It's just, they never got approved because I need the full faith and credit of the CNMI legislature.
Recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So I commend your efforts for being proactive in trying to, get a loan to use as leverage, right, to get bigger grants. And then I wanted to know if that was extended to you, where would the funding source come from to pay the loans?
You're talking about the Land and Water Conservation Fund?
Oh, like
Where would I get the money?
Yeah.
It
on
would come
F.
from the grant.
Oh, so, okay, so you would use
Same like the EDA. The money's just gonna be stuck there, but because we cannot,
right.
no cash flow to cover the
Okay,
expense up
so
front.
it's a wash. It's an in and out
Yeah, in and out.
transaction. Okay, and then, like I said, it's commendable that you're trying to get all these grants to push out more projects, right? But the reality is our workforce we're suffering, right? And just the infrastructure itself for construction, like there's a long line of businesses and other projects that are competing for contractors. So is that, are we moving too fast? Are we able to sustain and, um, provide the necessary workforce for these projects to move forward? Because we can get, you're very good at doing your job.
try.
But what happens after that when you're able to secure all that money and the projects, and then we hit an obstacle because we don't have the capacity to move
So
forward.
a good example is the solar for all. The expected 5,000 installation of solar units for the CNMI. We have embedded in our grants to provide workforce development on 2 different or 3 different grants. So once that grant comes in on March 24th, there is a plan to have training sessions at NMTI and other, like the college and other agencies, so that we can push the workforce development out,
Okay.
hopefully to spur up economic development by paying
Yes.
them more money to do the installation.
That is the hope, right?
That is the hope. So when we plan, we try to plan everything out. So workforce development is a big part of Solar for All.
So in that plan, are you already proactively having conversations with the?
Yes, we are having active conversations with NREL and NMPI.
Okay, just to make sure that they can supply you with the body to
Yes.
to be able to
So
provide the training.
part of our negotiations or our you cannot install a solar without getting that certification.
Okay,
Yes,
so but that's one project. If
that's a big one.
Okay.
Yes, Solar for All is between 25 million to 80 million.
Okay.
And with the future grants that Miss Tina Savlon might get and the other grant identified, like I said earlier, we are looking at between maybe up to 150 million by next year.
Sure. Yeah.
Just on
And
energy.
that's great, right? In the
Just
grand
on
scheme of
energy.
all, like that's
Yes.
great for us. That shows us that we can expect some economic activity, right?
Yes.
I'm a little bit worried about the capacity to be able to get those projects started because we are lacking in our workforce labor. But I'm sure, like you said,
Yes.
you guys have already
Yeah.
included that in all your planning and discussions. So
Yes.
just wanted to.
When we submitted the grant proposal for Solar for All, we calculated the return on investment for it'll bring in at least $231 million in this of disposable income when people don't have to pay for their CUC bill at 70%. So we did calculate it based on the EPA's guidelines. So we are expecting a little boom with that Solar for All, but it's just a matter of getting out all the assets, the collateral assets with the equipment out to the people's homes
Sure.
quickly enough. Yes. On
30.
231 million.
In how long?
3 years.
Okay.
But that's not including the other money that Miss Tina Sablon will get, and the other 20 to 40 million that we're also trying to get.
Are we what plans do we have in place to ensure that the money's being invested into the solar, right? That it stays in the CNMI and not, companies here remitting.
That's a good question. I highly
Because-
recommend. I think what Virgin Island does, we should tax upfront.
Yes.
Every project that the CNMI has, we should collect the tax upfront so you can push it out faster
Yeah,
into the.
Because that's one of the problems, right? We get so much money being pumped into the CNMI, but much of
might-
it is not staying here. It's
Yes,
going outside.
and you might not, and some people run away, or some businesses don't
Yes.
pay.
Yes.
So I suggest in the future maybe a legislation to tax upfront, collect the
Yes.
money, especially if they're federal grants. They will pay,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And then you can make further adjustments in the future.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cabrera. Are you, Chair?
Thank you, Vice. Any further discussion?
You mentioned about collaborating with NREL
Yes.
and tech regarding the workforce. Why don't you include labor?
Labor, Well,
Program apprenticeship, they do
Well,
certification.
one of the grants that was written was is collaborating with labor and NMTI. There's a grant already. It's like
But not for the solar project.
$840,000.
Not for the solar project.
No, not right now. If you should suggest, I mean, like, okay, I will reach out to labor.
Department of Labor, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they have this approach. It's worth a conversation. One other question, I know it's not related to the proposed bill. What is the status of the $800,000 feasibility study for the ferry? Where are we at on that?
For that study, you would have to contact Miss Alfreda Camacho at CODA.
But you don't know
We-
anything about it?
The past submission, or you're talking about current? The past, it wasn't viable because we didn't have a ferry ourselves before. So
The one as of late last year, I wanna say?
for now, what I can do say is there is a movement. The military is kind of helping us track along in the few coming months to move to visiting San Francisco. So the ferry system there. So that way we have a better idea of what we're going to submit in the near future. There are plans for the ferry for the CNMI. We're waiting for the study to come out from Afrida's office and the submission or you have to check Miss Alfreda's office for that. She's spearheading that grant.
Why San Francisco ferry system, why not?
That was highly recommended by DOT. They say they have the size that is comparable to the CNMI's needs.
That's all.
Just for informational purposes, so I attended the board meeting at CPA, and they did talk about the $800,000 with Department of Transportation. And from that meeting, it was shared that a ferry is already in the procurement process, and that they just needed to do some assessment in Tinian, I believe, and Rhoda, to make sure that the port is ready for the ferry. So, and that was as of last month.
Can I know who made that statement in CPA?
Mr. Cabrera, probably.
I would have to let me look back at my notes. Okay. and
But
then I
I'm
will
not
share.
sure if the money is available. I am unaware of where that money is going to come from.
Apparently, there's a $800,000 grant with transportation.
Would it cost more for just to get a ferry? It's millions. It's like 10 million to get a ferry.
I think that's the
Oh.
feasibility study.
Yeah, I think it's just a study. The study was like 792,000 or 700 for the study itself.
Okay.
We did do the grant work for the proposal for a ferry. We're thinking 32 million is what we need for 2 ferries
Okay.
out of Australia or Singapore. So Mr. Cabrera did help with that, but we did not get the grant because we don't have an existing ferry.
Okay.
My
I stand to.
understanding was that under Governor Ralph Torres authorized, I'm just hearing this, but I don't know.
3 million?
For ferry, supposedly, I want to say it was a decommissioned naval ship that was being retrofitted in China. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay. I was informed by the consultant who was hired.
All I know is that
to work on that.
former Governor Ralph Torres did authorize $3 million of ARPA to be used as cost share, 10% for that grant. However, we did not get the award for the full 32 million, so that 3 million became air money.
It was
Died.
basically.
It was just yes, or
That was a cost share, so they, put it up front, but they weren't awarded, so the money went back.
yeah, to the
Yeah, where did it go?
yes.
Hold on. Chairman.
Thank you. Any more? So that our council and LA can prepare the amendments, do we agree with the February 26th allocation? February 26th, Part B?
I have concern about the OPA allocation.
Zero.
Only because we have a lot of funny stuff. We can discuss that as a committee. Yeah. Civil service too, I don't understand why they would be included, although they are included as a part of the cost pool, their actions don't take place until after a grievance has been filed, you know? All requests for personal action doesn't go through them, goes through OPM, not necessarily civil services. It's only if a classified employee files a grievance that it goes through that route, so.
I mean, we're talking about $20,000. Maybe we can suggest for OPA the 1% to go back to OMB and OPM, 0.5% each. So it goes up to 4% each. It's a suggestion.
We'll decide that.
Okay.
So we'll take your recommendation.
Okay. Any concerns with Section D on the September recommendation?
I do. Oh. D?
Yeah.
How much is that roughly, recommendation D, the 5%, each from subgrant funding annually? Is for the Tinian and Water. From the total 20% set aside for subgrants. So out of the 20% set aside for subgrants, basically OGM will only be getting 10.
No.
No.
20% of the 40%.
Oh,
So on the February 26th proposal, that's no longer there.
Yeah.
Section D, right?
Right.
well, so I think he inadvertently, no, forgot to include it back in, or.
Suggestion. It's just you can use both. I mean, it still works. For clarification, for the current fiscal year 2020, I mean, using the 2023 numbers, 5% of 165,000 is only 8,252.7. So maybe that's not enough. Or I mean, we actually do give more money than that to Rhoda and to Tinian. It's just a base number.
Okay. Concerns to D. D. If none, go on to E,
No,
and then F. I think you had questions, but final concerns or questions before we deliberate.
you need to ask those, OJ?
Yeah.
No, I think it was that.
Okay. Do you want to address the percentage now in regards to OPA?
OPA. My only concern with that is that OGM, yeah, has already included it as a part of their formula for submission, so if we
Get rid of it.
get rid of it, would that necessarily force you to remove it from your formula?
I mean, not necessarily. I'm just it'll
But
be
they
a
do
good.
audits on the grants, right? I mean, so why?
Yes,
Who audits the grants?
the single audit does that. The single audit represents the entire
Not
federal.
necessarily OPA.
OPA mainly handles local,
That's what I mean.
but they still work through the enforcement of like grants per se. I mean like waste and abuse and fraud,
Misuse of
misuse of funds. So
I've never, take Fish and Wildlife for example, they lost a $500,000 grant, and I'm not sure, it was directed to Fish and Wildlife. They started, federal started, reducing that grant, we lost 50%, and then we lost some more. But OPA was never there to,
which
audit that grant, I can't think of the name right now. The Fish and Wildlife.
This character, simple audit, but syntax audit. Normally when the external audit, syntax audit the books of the syntax on the state and federal money. On the state side and the federal side, they have a threshold, like a certain amount that they would audit, say for 500 million.
Yeah.
To look into those federal grants and do the single audit. Now, for state side, which is the appropriation of the million, appropriation area, that's also included. So it was both state and federal money. So it's important.
in the past, the threshold for the single audit was 2.3 million. So any grant above 2.3 would get audited. So given that we received so many grants in the past years, that threshold went up. So you're looking at the bigger ones now, like above 4 million or more. That's why only like 6 or 9 of the major components or major units get audited, because they only can take a basis unless you're going to pay more for the single audit to be done.
okay. Well,
$1. I'm okay with the rest.
so finalizing the percentage.
If anything, as mentioned by the administrator, the Attorney General's office plays a more active role, engaged in federal grants.
But that's future because they would need to get the approval. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Because they're not considered now, but they would need to propose.
Does OIA know OPA is, or did they approve OPA being a part of the cost?
As mentioned, since I started working for the government in 2001, it's been there.
So you don't necessarily know if, they are a part of this cost.
Which one?
OPA,
It's
They've
been
been
there.
in there since
It's been
2001.
there.
but that doesn't mean that.
Unless Mr. Schrack is wrong. I mean, they approved the rate ever since. So if that, and you have to explain every agency's dealing in the indirect cost pool. So you would have to justify. So
But since you've taken over, or even prior to that, they have never, to your knowledge, have never received, right?
indirect,
Because of this bill now.
in terms of indirect costs,
Yeah.
the law prescribed in 19-49 doesn't allow anybody else to get indirect costs except for OGM. However, there is a a bill prior for Homeland Security to use their indirect costs, which I don't know whether it's still legally viable, or they do. Only Homeland, I know, keeps their indirect costs. There is a law that stipulated that they keep it to pay for utilities and the director's salary. And right now, I got a phone call this morning saying that they're trying to establish the account so that they can properly track that funding.
Who's trying to establish that?
Homeland Security, Miss Naomi.
Naomi?
According to BJ, Nicholas.
So as far as you know, no other government agency retains their own legacy.
In the central government, no, nobody. PSS has their own. I'm talking about central. No, everybody follows the rate that we set. So the cognizant agency of the Sinai government is the insular OIA. So everybody follows that rate. Yeah. The hospital has its own. I am not sure if CPA has one, but they should get one. CUC does not have its own. They should get one.
You mean get one what?
In rate, indirect costs. They're not charging indirect costs at CUC, and they get all that EPA money can go to their administrative costs. That's how they can pay for their engineers or cars or stuff.
We'll take a
I want to ask a
5-minute recess. All right, we now rise back from recess. Prior to going on recess, we were just discussing the allocation of the indirect costs. And so at this time, I would like to propose an amendment, and that is to divvy up the 100% indirect costs as follows: 25% to the Department of Finance, 3.5% each to OMB and OPM, 1% to Public Auditor, 1% to Administrative Services, 40% to OGM, 1% to Civil Service, and 25% to the CNMI government, with additional language that the 25% shall be placed in a separate account from the general fund to be used to address the deficit. I'd also like to propose that we add in on page 2, line 19, to provide for of the 20% that shall be deposited into a special account for subgrants, 5% each shall be reserved for the municipalities of Rhode and Tinian to provide subgrants. And then and then the third amendment would be on page 3, line 13, or at least after line 16. In addition to the 7 positions that are currently in the statute, to add in grant specialist 2, grant specialist 3, grant writers 2, and grant writers 3. Or I'm sorry, to replace 4 and 5 with the because there's grant specialist 1. Is that correct? Okay, I'm sorry. On line 13, there's grant specialist, so we'll correct that or amend that to be grant specialist 1, and then add a grant specialist 2 and 3. And then on line 14, which has grant writer, in general, just replace that with 1 and then add a grant writer 2 and 3. So move. Thank you. There was a motion. I made a motion and it was seconded by the vice chair. Discussion on that motion. Ready? At this time, I recognize our LA to take roll.
Senator Selena R. Babauta.
Yes.
Senator Karina L. Magofin.
Yes.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors. Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. With 3 members voting yes, the amendments are hereby adopted. And now back to the main motion. We have House Bill 2356 SD1. Discussion on the main motion. Oh, can I get a motion to adopt? Again, a motion was made and seconded. This time I recognize the LA to take roll.
Senator Selena R. Babauta.
Yes.
Senator Karina L. Magofin.
Yes.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors. Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 1 member is absent.
With 3 members voting yes, House Bill 2356 SD1 is hereby adopted. And as soon as LA is done preparing the committee reports, we will get it routed for signatures. All right, that takes care of House Bill 2356. I know we have 2 more items on the agenda, which is to address the commerce fees. I included in the agenda in the event that council and the LA were done making the corrections so that we can act on it today. Unfortunately, council is still working on separating the 2. Like, as I stated last week, these 2 bills, House Bill 2316 HS1 and 2349, are somewhat similar in nature, and so we are still going to proceed with both bills, provided that Senate Bill 2349 will address the annual corporate report issue on that bill, and then House Bill 2316 HS1 will address all other fees that is proposed in that bill. And so we will table those bills until council has prepared the final amendments, and that will be shared with the members before we act on it. Any other concerns, members? We move on to miscellaneous. Any other announcements?
Really.
If none, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, a motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Meeting is hereby adjourned at 4:41 p.m.